Where you going?
You can come over this way, really, that way. And that's how it
All right. As an update from where we left off last time, we talked about, Gina's got all the questions answered in the supplemental. We'll get to all those about plating and ETJ, what can happen there. You also asked me to look at fees and what was going on. You have the spreadsheet that you've seen, which has all the other comparisons to the cities. And then the last page is that comparison that I promised Frank and Jennifer that I'd do for them. And what I did was I used some of the most recent developments because we have a preliminary plat, we had the Duncan replat, which you approved tonight, we have Driscoll Hill and Georgetown Meadows, and then I did a schematic on what it might take to do the if we had to do the Georgetown PD again. So, and if you can see up here, I know it kind of bleached out on your copy, but just to show you what the fees look like in comparison to each other.
What is, while you're looking at it, could you tell me what the population of Alstyne is? Because I was looking to see which one we were compared with that had the same population as us.
Salina's
Around 12,000.
Yeah, Salina's up around 12,000 now.
So they're up there with Frisco, Plano,
Yeah.
so we're the smallest.
But at the rate you're going. So if you look at your sheet, everything on the right-hand side of the sheet here, which shows if for example, the O'Reilly's Auto Park came in or the Cooley preliminary plat came in, here are the fees. And where it says costs, I don't know what Jennifer actually charged on that plat for the replat for O'Reilly's, but it was probably $100 or $150, something like that. If that same development, just so you can understand how this is done, if that same development would have gone to Anna, they would have been charged $330. If they'd have gone to Salina, they'd have been charged $310. Melissa, $375, and so on. So you kind of see that if something like the O'Reilly's plat that came in over on the west side of town came in, that's what those cities would have charged based on the size of the lot and with their base fee. What I have in yellow, can you go up a little bit? Yeah. What I have here in yellow is if we propose a fee similar to Anna or Salina, which if you look at the old sheet, Anna charges $325 plus $5 a lot, or let's see, or per acre. If we charge that plus $10 per lot or acre, you can see what happens in the comparison of the fees doing that. Also over here is approximate costs that it took to review those, including city staff time and consulting staff time for review of plans and things like that. So on the review of the plat and the site plan, ended up costing the city of Van Alstyne about $700, almost $800. Okay? If they would have been in right now, what you charge them to do that was probably about $100, $150. So you already see you're working at a deficit for a new development coming in. So what's happening are the taxpayers out of your general fund budget for development are paying for that $700 to bring that development in. Anna, if you add those together, would have charged about $600 for that. Salina would have been about $820. You can kind of add those up and see where we are and how that would do. So what I did for each of these type of developments here is on a plat, which is the O'Reilly's is a replat of the Crossroads additions. we go in with the 325 plus $10 an acre, you would have collected a fee of $335 for that plat, and on the site plan, I did a base fee of $300 and $100 per acre rounded up. Because site plans, if you get a grocery store, a big 10 acre development, it takes a little bit more review than a 1 acre. So that's why it's in that color. I know these colors aren't, I'm colorblind on top of trying to tell you what these colors are, so excuse me if I do that. There's 3 colors here that I can see, so. But I can't tell you what they are. So under that proposed rate fee, we would have collected, under the new one, you would have collected $735, and you got about $800, so you're getting closer to balancing out. I've left these, we can change these here, so you can sit, you interact, and you can see how your rates would change. The Cooley's preliminary plat that you just approved took about $700 to review. Here on the preliminary plat, I'm proposing $400. So I just put in the numbers similar to the rates at the other cities that you're in competition with on those developments, so you can kind of see where you want to go, and we can change any of these numbers up here in these colors per unit to kind of offset where you want to be with that. And again, anything you don't charge, the developer's really getting the benefit of the existing, and there's some incentive to bring them into town, but all that burden shouldn't be left on the existing taxpayer for that. If you went down to Driscoll Hill, there's an example here, with their preliminary plat, using the same basis, you can kind of see where those numbers fall out. And so there's some tweaking that can be done on fees, but overall, the rates and the charges that the city of Van Alstyne taxpayers are picking up right now for things you don't charge on development is over here, and the proposed fees kind of fit in and kind of make up for that difference. So kind of let you peruse that, take a look, and if you want to jockey with any of these base fees and the cost per lot or per acre, you kind of see how you get that up. But we've got the Driscoll Hill subdivision, which was about 130 lots, over 52 acres, and we've got the Georgetown Meadows number 2, which is the one that's getting ready to open, which was 66 lots and about 17 acres. One thing you need to realize is on the development plans for both of those, you had, I didn't charge all that, but if every hour was charged to that, you'd have had about $8,000 worth of review time and staff time to get those subdivisions in, and you currently charge them $0 for processing those plans. So there's a disparity.
What would happen if we wanted to just try to kind of standardize things so that people can see where the numbers were coming from? What if we charged $325 an hour for your hours? And then for either a lot or an acre. Now, I don't know what it takes to look at a lot versus looking at an acre, but what if we charge either $10 or $15 per lot or per acre, whichever is the greater number?
Right.
And that would mean in Driscoll Hill at $325 an hour times 6 hours plus $10 per lot would have been a total of $3,240. $15 per lot would have been a total of $3,885.
Right.
Georgetown would have been with 126 acres times $10. It would have been $3,860, and if we charge $15 per acre, it would have been $44.90. So, is that oversimplifying, or would something like that work?
But I think that, then you're going to put a hour rate, and you're gonna have to put that out there, and say, okay, this is always a 4-hour job, it's always a 6-hour job. And I could see where a developer or anybody else coming in, why is this a 6-hour job? You know, they're doing it 4 hours. And, you know, and I have to agree with the amount for the job, and if it takes 9 hours of Jennifer's time because she's slow versus someone else doing it in 7, the developer shouldn't be punished accordingly. And I could see just giving them the amount.
Well, and I pointed at Lynn when I said your time, but I guess I'm talking about.
Yeah, because in the Van Alstyne costs, I included staff time, and, you know, it also includes coming to the P and Z and also coming to council and presenting those meetings too. So I just wanted to make that fair. I agree with her. It's going to be kind of hard based on the size. We can come up with a ratio, but it'd be kind of convoluted. That's why if we do it on a base fee, whatever we want to set the base fee at, and, you know, all the other surrounding cities are between $300 and $400 on a base fee. You bring in anything, it's that times the multiplier is based on the size, and like you said, which is either the number of lots or the number of acres, and we can say whichever is greater and write it.
It's a practical matter. I think you want them to pay up front when you bring in the plat. You don't want to have to bill them after the fact. We charged you, 6 hours for this. You want to be able to tell them when they bring in the plat, you got to write a check right now, or else take it back to the.
If everybody else is doing this, I mean, based on size and job and so forth, I can't see us introducing, in Van Alstyne, we're going to introduce an hourly thing where the rest of the state is basing on the job.
So what I was proposing wouldn't allow them to write a check right at home when you wouldn't know.
Well, we'd have to have, if it's a plat with so many, we'd have to create a table basically of expected hours and do that. Whereas if they're walking in with a plat and they're dropping it off with Jennifer, she knows that you got the base rate, and then, okay, we can do it either way. We can do the most expensive by dollar amount per acre or a dollar amount per lot. The difference where that would make a difference is usually per lot is residential only. So everything else would be by the acre. If it's commercial or industrial or anything else, there'd be an acreage charge, so that, you know, obviously if you got a 100-acre development, you got a lot more to review than you do with a 1-acre development. So that's why the size of the development that's coming in is actually.
I didn't know how intensely you had to look at it.
Well, I mean, if it's like O'Reilly's, I mean, you got to look at parking, you got to look at parking spaces, you got to look at utilities. I mean, it's still 1 acre is 1 acre. It's still got a lot of pieces that need to fit together that you got to review.
Is it practical to charge one fee for a commercial development, a different one for residential?
Sure. Yeah, which is kind of what I tried to do, I think, with the different colorings up there is, although the base rates are about the same, but where the site plan is, that's per acre, and then the other two are per lots because they're residential. But I was just trying to show you, what a great deal those current developers that have come in and have got their plans approved are doing versus versus the equity and fair. If somebody wants to come in and develop, if they have to pay $7,000 to get a Driscoll Hill in on a $1.7 million, infrastructure project that's going to put 130 lots on the ground, they're not going to quibble over that. But
I was going to say, aren't those that are coming in, don't they really expect to pay more than what we are charging at the present time? I know they are.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
this is their expectation, even though it seems high for us.
It's a little high for what you're used to seeing right now,
For
but
what we're used to seeing, but not for what when they come in for a large.
And that's why I wanted to show you what the other cities would have charged if they came in with that similar development. For example, if Driscoll Hill would have come in to Salina, they would have charged almost $9,000 for that review. You know, and then Anna would have charged, what is that, about $5,000. So, or $4,500. You know, that, no questions asked, you know, and like I said, when you have a Driscoll Hill type development where you have $1.5 to $1.7 million that you're ready to build lots and streets and infrastructure, $5,000 to $700,000 or $5,000 to $7,000 is
And large developments are different than just
right.
residential.
What would be the purpose of doing commercial over residential as far as breaking up the fee structure? From a staff standpoint, the simpler you can make it, the better off we're going to be as far as being able to charge the appropriate amount, and making sure that we're not falling outside of the parameters. So, I mean, I don't, you know, in looking at the plat numbers, I don't see, besides the acreage count, I don't see where it's, you know, any different between O'Reilly's and Cooley. But yet, when you get into Driscoll Hill or some of the larger developments, that's where you change gears. So, from a time standpoint, it may be dramatically different from Lynn, but it doesn't sound like it. But from a staff standpoint, as far as the ladies making sure, or if we end up with another person, the guy out there, them charging the appropriate amount and from the right fee structure is simpler when you make it better off.
I wasn't really looking at this right. I was looking line by line, not summing up everything done for Driscoll Hill. I was really, the figures that I was talking about, I was only looking at the plat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we can't do that for each of the three.
Well, right now you don't do that, but if you look at the old sheet that where you do all the comparison, all the other cities do. You just have a lot of gaps, and like the development set, the subdivision plans, you don't have a fee for that right now at all.
None?
So in Salina, zero. And Salina has a $5,000 deposit, and then they'll tell you might get a refund or you might owe them more
Right.
when you finish.
Right.
So.
We talked about it our last meeting.
Yeah. So yeah, Larry, if you sum those up, because the typical process of a subdivision like Driscoll Hill, they've got to, well, like Mr. Cooley did, he's got to come in with a preliminary plat, set up the lot layout, that's approved. He goes back, does his subdivision plans, and gives us that, you know, it was a 58-page set of plans for Driscoll Hill. And then they go through and they do a final plat to do the final lot setup. So we need to do each one of those things for that development before it's final.
And do you want him, would you want them in Driscoll Hill, for instance, to write 3 different checks?
Typically, yeah, because the preliminary plat is going to be a month or two ahead of the development plan. The development plans and the final plat are usually accompanying each other. So we'll have those come in together, so she could write, you know, say your plat fee is this, and your site plan, or, you know, your development set review is this. And they can write one check for that, but the preliminary plat is usually a couple of months out in front of the development and everything else.
And after preliminary plat, you wouldn't want to charge them by the lot or by for the time, the administrative time, for review.
Well, based on the size of the plat, I'm thinking, well, like Jim said, it's kind of hard to tell if, you know, Driscoll Hill was a little more intense this time. You can see we only spent about 12 hours on Georgetown Meadows on the development plat because it was pretty well established and stuff like that. Driscoll Hill came back in and redesigned everything, so to speak. They, you know, and they had to redo everything, so we had to go in and, with fresh eyes, and start all brand new with them.
I have a question, and
Yes.
maybe really off, but when these companies come in and they present plat, and then they go through all the procedures. And then, when it's all over, they don't do, maybe halfway through, they quit, or we don't get the alley that we actually wanted, that they said they were going to do, and everything was built according to that. What kind of penalties have we ever posed on them? Because everything is done according to what they have presented that they are going to do.
Right.
I know we were talking about another thing here where they presented something and said they would only do so much and they did more. We had another one that came in and they presented it and they were going to do it and then they did not finish.
Right.
So, and I was looking in here at penalties, but
Well, and what you're talking about is a bond, a completion bond or warranty bond. So we during this, and that would be in the subdivision ordinance, and Regina can talk about that, but you can request a completion bond from each of these developers as they get approved. And that way, once they sign the development agreement and come forward, if they don't finish, you can go back to their bonding company and have whatever needs to be finished.
so it's called a completion bond?
It's a payment and performance bond. So, yeah.
Payment performance bond?
Yeah. But that,
We have to, we're going to have
well, that's part of, that you would have to put that requirement in the subdivision ordinance to enforce that and say that if you're coming in with the development, you right now only require a maintenance bond, a 2-year maintenance bond, which means after they finish, you got 2 years to wait for things to fail and stuff, and then they come back and you say, you gotta fix that, fix this, and fix this at the 24-month area. But you don't have a performance or payment bond at this point.
If that's something the council wants, then certainly worth trying to do.
sense to me.
To answer your question, Frank, my only thinking on that is if what we have over here on the north side of town, where we just have a homeowner or a property owner who's just dividing the lot in half, and that's a fairly simple thing. In that case, probably a replat, which is another discussion we need to have. Maybe that could be a lower fee, base fee, on a residential thing versus a additional bill where it's a large company and they won't mind the $5,000.
We could be.
And on a replat, I like that replat, the Duncan replat, they're not proposing any public infrastructure, so there is no bonding, there is no bonding requirement with that. It's only when they're,
Well, I'm sorry, I was back to the fees.
Yeah.
So I noticed you still said that it cost us about $345.
right. So,
That's the only thing I was thinking there is the ability to pay and willingness to go forward might be different between small commercial, or any commercial versus a small residential.
Okay. We could, we could graduate. Couldn't we, or what would it need,
Mhm,
what would it need to be?
yeah, you can graduate, there's several cities that have tiered. If you've got 1 to 4 lots and more than 10 lots and more than 50 lots, you can tier the fee.
Or maybe address that by having a small base but a larger per lot fee.
Yeah. Something like
I
that.
know some of what.
But our cost would actually be $345 to look at it, for the administration and everything.
Yeah, for the Duncan replat, yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was true.
Yeah.
And so, although it seems like maybe, I'm sure they would argue it should be nice. In actuality, maybe it wouldn't.
right.
It's still a plat, we gotta review.
Well, and I made that fit, let's see, that's the that's up here in the yellow or gold or whatever, it's 325 times $10 a lot. They had 2 lots, so it ends up being 345, so it's 325 plus 20. Which, if you look at what the other cities would charge on that same exact thing, it kind of meets, it's basically the same. It's the same as Anna, a little less than Salina.
So I may not understand the columns. Column B seems to say that we spend an hour on it. Is that what?
Time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how about this, Lynn? Frisco says $100 an acre on residential development plans, and that's what we're talking about? Is that where we are?
If, okay, that would be,
But I mean, is that what we're talking about, is residential development plans?
well, on the
So-
big, on the big stuff, yes.
Okay, so on the big stuff, so could we do $100 for an acre or less? And then if it's 40 acres like Driscoll Hill, or then it's $4,000?
Yeah, I mean, and that would, yeah, 52, yeah.
Would that correlate out to what we're trying to achieve?
Yeah, that would, you know, if you did like $100 an acre on large residential over that, that would have got $5,200 to review the development plans and would have been $1,700 to review the Georgetown Meadow plan. So you're at least in the, you know,
Would that achieve your acre or less? I mean, so what kind of time are we looking at if we have an acre or less for you to take a look at it, be good with it, and also incorporate staff's time up front?
yeah.
Is that $100 going to get us there, or?
Usually not on a commercial site, but, you know, that'd be the residential rate.
Okay.
If you did it per acre, and then if you had a commercial site per acre also. O'Reilly's ended up being about $450 worth in 2 hours, so.
Let's get back out of that box. Okay, so,
Well, okay, let's do it. If residential was 100 and commercial was $200 an acre,
would that get us there?
that you'd be close.
What was it? O'Reilly's is 2 acres?
Well, it was actually one, so it actually would have to be.
Okay, so what's, on the commercial side, what's going to get us there? I mean, can we agree to the $100 an acre on the residential side? Will that get us where we need to be on plan? Are we looking at a set of plans then? Or, I mean, what about Cooley's? I mean, is Cooley's going to be,
Cooley's is 1.3 acres, so.
and it costs $400?
Well, that was for the preliminary plat. So
Okay.
when he comes in with his plans,
How-
he's only going to be charged $130 for the
I
site
understand,
plan
but
review.
I'm not talking about what he's going to be charged, but I'm talking about what is his time when we're looking at that.
When
What
his
is-
time, because he's going to have all that drainage and the tech dot and everything else, he's probably going to have 5 to 10 hours of billable time
So-
to review that.
So what's going to be our estimated cost on that, on the extension?
About $1,000.
But everything won't have that drain, all those.
No, but you're right, Mayor. But, I mean, we're going to have a fair amount of drainage challenges moving forward though. But you're right, that is an extreme case. So what's reasonable and what's fair?
Well, see there, if you charge per lot, say, if you had a base fee of 300 and then charged, 4 lots, so $250 a lot. So, I mean, you had a base fee plus a lot fee. It gets convoluted as you get smaller, so we might need to do a tiered rate to do that.
And when you're talking about residential, if that one term is everything included, a townhouse, apartment complex,
Except everything but apartment complex. Apartment complex is treated as a commercial site because it's a bigger, but a townhouse, a duplex, a single family
duplexes,
is single family. It can be single family too.
that's,
Cooley duplex.
what?
Cooley was duplex.
Yes.
So there's I see a tier we need to probably have a tier at once you hit 10 acres or so, maybe 5 acres. I didn't get into that much in the research. Then you go to the per acre charge, and below that you just have a set fee. Might be.
And the other way to express that is just a minimum. Say $100 per acre minimum, $500.
Yeah. Yeah.
Charge it for 4 or 5.
Right.
whatever the number is.
So $100 per acre, less costs exceed that, or?
500 minimum or something like that. You know, there's going to be extreme, you know, like Mr. Cooley's site's got a lot of TxDOT and a lot of drainage, which is
Sure.
very unusual for a 1.5 acre
So, okay,
subdivision.
so what you're getting at is 500 and then $100 per acre for each additional acre?
No, well, 500,
Is that what?
well, or what Jim said was do $100 an acre for that 500 minimum, and then if you're over 5 acres, I mean, all of a sudden you're into the other rate.
What was council think?
Yeah, I like that discussion.
Larry, Rowley's want to
We're
make?
on,
As long as we can get them bid, not tax everybody.
As
As long as we're consistent. Billy?
I like the tiered rate.
Okay, so far we have, Councilman Kelly likes the tiered rate. They want us to be consistent, and Billy's opinion.
$100 per acre, and then with a $500 minimum. So if it comes in 40 acres, then it's $400. But if it's, let's say it's 1 acre or less, then it's,
Say it's 4 acres.
then it's $500 minimum. Is that right, Jim?
Yep.
I just threw out the 500 number, I mean, that's kind of what
Well, you
Richard's
can't
is
shoot from
looking
your
at.
hip, sir. I mean, so,
Like Plano's 250 plus $5 long.
and
And that may put us at the high end of the other cities.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. I wanna stay-
Frisco is only $100, but they're going to charge you.
Well, but yeah, remember where Frisco is in their growth too. They were a lot more expensive. As they've grown out, they've gotten cheaper because they've got the infrastructure to support it. So you're at the growing phase where, you know, and
And it's obviously reflected in the cities here that are growing in that regard.
Right.
Anna, Salina, Melissa, Prosper, I mean, they're all high.
Like Robert said, you know, also being competitive.
Yeah, I definitely don't think we should be higher than like Anna and Melissa.
you need to at least be competitive.
I agree with that.
Although the developers that are coming in, like I said, the Driscoll Hill subdivision, they're going to spend $1.7 million, and if you told them they're going to write a, well, $5,200 check plus the plating, plus the preliminary plat, say $7,000 out of $1.7 million, they're going to reach in their pocket for spare change and give it to you.
Yeah, we want to make sure the name on that check's to Van Alstyne, not Savannah.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that probably,
$1.7 million, and you're going to charge them $5,000 versus $4,000. Do you really think that $1,000 is going to make someone leave Van Alstyne?
You know, this is a really good point, Herb, because if they're looking at Van Alstyne, they've done a lot of preliminary background checking. They're coming here for a reason, and it isn't by our fees.
Yeah, $1,000 is not even something to think about.
but you don't want to be outside the box of
No.
where every one of the competitors are, but you also want to be able to not put that extra burden
Oh, I
on your
totally
general
agree with
fund.
that.
Right now, it's on your general fund, and, you know, you're supporting it, you're supporting the extra work that we're doing.
Right, I do not like that. Is it raining? No. Oh,
it's got a weird
Weird.
cloud line, so I was just looking at the radar to see what.
That's too.
So, yes, so, you know, whatever gets us competitive, I like the tiered rate, that makes sense to me. Because I feel like, you know, the smaller individuals that want to do something with property that they already own, we don't want to make that challenging for them. But at the same time, we definitely want to recoup costs and not have that come out of the general budget for larger projects.
Okay, so it was blue when I did it, but the middle box here, we're talking about being $100 an acre,
Yeah.
500 minimum, So that's everything that would be in the blue.
Yeah.
The plat and the preliminary plat, we could, I mean, we're competitive there too, so those are different items that need to be reviewed and addressed and go through the P and Z and the council also.
Can you scroll up to Jennifer's for the development fee comparison? I think it's probably page one.
Oh, yeah, it's on the sheet one.
Yeah, that page one.
Yeah, so,
I mean, I think the Melissa rate maybe
Yeah.
just copy that, but either Melissa,
okay, yeah, if you go to the first page there, Melissa's at 250 plus 15 a lot for a residential preliminary plat. Then here you're gonna separate what type of plat it is. Residential preliminary plat, residential final plat, commercial plat, replat, all that other stuff. So, and you've got the range here, and they're all pretty consistent. So, we can pick something that's competitive there to make sure that we recover the costs that it take to review and work with the consultant that's bringing that in. But yeah, by comparison, each one of those, you go to that other page and see that. What was it? The Duncan replat? That Duncan replat that you just did. According to my calculations, Jennifer would ask them for a $62 check to review that plat and go through P and Z, and then come to council like it did tonight and have a public hearing. Whereas if that happened anywhere else, it'd have been 330 and 320. So,
which I think is probably reasonable for a homeowner.
right, and our costs were incurred right about 340, 320 to 340. So that would make you competitive and recoup your costs. So.
Did you do a in-time comparison thing if this had been in existence in the last year? What it would have been?
Other than I could have totaled all those developments.
Okay, so you did.
No, I just picked some
Okay, I was just wondering.
very different. What do you mean? We've done what, maybe 20 plats so far this year. So, but the major development that's come in has been O'Reilly. I think Golden Check would have been the only other one I could have put in there.
Golden Chicken O'Reilly's.
Golden Check O'Reilly's is the only commercial that you've done. And we've had a bunch of residential replats that, out in the ETJ. But that's been about it. So I think that other sheet, if back to sheet 2, if you just sum that total cost down there.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, that's going to get you. That's going to be 90.
The extra $10,000
Yeah.
the city would have had if only this take a year ago.
Well, if we just sum that up, Jeff, you go sheet 2.
That's okay. It was-
Well, no, I mean, if we sum that up, go down the bottom and sum row E. Yeah. Oh, wait. That's probably going to be 90. Yeah, okay, well, I mean, oh, yeah, okay. So that's about 15,000. So maybe $20,000 worth of fees that you didn't collect this year so far.
I believe so, but what does council believe is going to be? What do y'all want to see as far as you like the proposed, you like Melissa's? I've heard a couple of different things. I know Larry threw out one suggestion, but we're looking for something consistent. I'm sorry Russell isn't here. His events were rescheduled for tonight since there's a window of opportunity to get some of the children's events done, so he can use the couch, or he needs the couch. back to this once Russell gets here, but if y'all have, kind of a feeling of where y'all want to be on fees, certainly like to move forward towards that, because that way, if Russell gets in here, then he can either confirm what it is the council likes, the suggestion for us to move forward, or he can modify it. But if we go back to step one, once he gets here, then it'd be harder to gain consensus.
And we really need to move forward.
We do, but
So let's start out.
Which is exactly which one is that is written?
what we're recommending is
5 and 10.
Darkest shaded?
yes.
Okay, now,
So Melissa is one that we're suggesting. There would need to be some modification because there are some things that Melissa even leaves out. So you want to walk down it, Lynn? And
Yeah.
see?
If you go to the first page, over in the corner, you can kind of see the Melissa rates right there. They got, on a preliminary plat, residential preliminary plat's $250 plus $15 a lot, $300 plus $20, $300 plus $20, $300 plus $25. You go down through, we're talking about on the development plats or development plans, right
Melissa
there.
Waves, we just had a lengthy discussion about.
Yeah, what Jim threw out was a $100 an acre with a $500 minimum on the residential plats there. All these plats would be similar, amended plat, conveyance plat, development plat. Those just get transferred down and are similar to the other plats up here, depending on if they're residential or non-residential.
But on replat, you would want the 250 and 15 on the replat,
The replat,
because Melissa's got it omitted,
yeah, it's not omitted there, so yeah, we'd probably do,
250 and 15 for the same as the preliminary plat.
or probably is the final, because it is a final plat, so probably be 300 plus 20.
320.
Yeah, preliminary plat is just, here's the general shape of the lots. A final plat is, here are the property lines and they define them. And so it is more, a replat is a redefinition of a final plat. So,
Kimberly, you want to start off
Can-
with one?
can we-
Kimberly, I'm sorry. Kimberly's what are your recommendations?
Actually, I think that Lynn has the most expertise in the room regarding this, and I know that he's had a lot of discussions with you guys regarding this. So if he feels like Melissa is the right way to go, and it makes sense to me looking at it, that we are slightly lower on the cost, say, in the base, but then we go up per the lot or per acre, that makes sense to me. So I like that.
The Melissa model makes sense to me.
We should show that to us first, Lynn.
Yeah.
The comparison was good.
well, but I also wanted to show you the impact that it's
Yeah,
had
I
on
said
your,
that
that it's had on your budget, and,
Yes.
as development begins really occurring here, that's really almost a full-time person to review that kind of stuff, because it's, if all these other things happen, there's going to be a lot of development going on and a lot of coordination. And then, just going through and comparing them. If Melissa's got a model, if not, we'll find somebody comparable
Right.
and make that happen so that you can do that, so.
Okay, so on amended plat, what do you?
And Robert's
Oh, I'm
is
sorry.
okay with that too.
No, it's fine.
Billy?
Go ahead.
No, I was moving forward, so, okay, so on the
How does this
fees,
sound to you?
Yeah, sounds okay.
Okay, you've got four. Okay.
yes, ma'am. So we've got that on the top end, now on the amended plats below the bar, what,
Those are the new, Frank, those are those new ones that you, according to the new ordinance, those are the administrative review, so there's not as much,
so is Anna's $100, is that appropriate? Here's Russell. We just agreed to something. So, that we'll confirm with you.
Well,
Chair,
that could-
right here, sir.
the only thing different with the amended plats in the conveyance plats and development plats those are administrative review only. They don't, you still have the regular staff time and the review, you just don't have the P and Z and the council time. So if you stay at the lower end of the, say maybe $200 plus a lot count, I think those will cover the admin time that, staff is spending on that.
So on amended plat, you like the Frisco, the $100 plus $20 per lot, is what you're saying, or where?
I think it probably 200, just based on the.
Just 200?
Yeah, 200 plus.
Okay, because it is restricted to a certain,
Yes.
certain size.
Yeah,
Plus 20 per lot?
plus 20, yeah, 20 would be, because once you start, well, I think the amended plat is 4 lots or less anyway, so, you can't, it's got to be 4 lots or less in an amended plat anyway.
Jennifer, is there a way for you to fill in those boxes coming down? So we can, that way we can make sure we're on the same page with everybody.
On the app right
I
there.
tell you what, let's go to residential preliminary plat, that way everybody can see it, since we've already discussed how low the fees are. 250 plus 15.
Yeah.
Alstyne
On the Van Alstyne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Melissa, it's
That's just
popular,
all the
so-
Melissa, except for the replant.
Except for the replant.
300 plus 20.
Can we legally do anything on this mobile home? Make that outrageous, so.
I tell you, if you, Melissa's made it a little outrageous, because if you look at Salina and you look at Anna, Melissa's made it fairly unreasonable,
Yeah.
and that's, I mean,
We
it-
can't just make it totally unreasonable.
You have to be able to prove up your admin costs, basically.
Gainesville's $1,000.
Can't just
Okay,
say
they
we
done
don't
it on
know.
minute.
You can't say we don't want to, you can put them in certain parts of town, depending on where in town they can be.
we can restrict
But
it.
all costs are related to, and he's done a really good job of saying, here's what we've done in the past
Same
X
with that
months,
one too.
true
No.
costs, and then now we're setting costs, so it has to true up.
I'm just, if we could.
In development.
I understand, sir.
Just
And-
sort of the opportunity to do it.
Gainesville
This
and
one
Melissa
is
probably do the best job of making it as
$100
reasonable
an
as
acre.
possible.
We can put them in the creek, but not really.
Yeah, $100 per acre, about 500.
Already. Even though they can't use it.
That we've got the Melissa, so then we've got the amended plant, right, did you
That's how
say
I
that
do
was 200 plus
Okay.
20?
On residential development plans, wasn't it 100 plus $100 an acre, $500 minimum, or how?
$500 minimum, yeah.
Okay,
So that would be 500 minimum.
okay. So the base is $500 an acre.
Well, why don't you say $100 an acre?
Minimum, and then parentheses, 500 minimum. And Jim just asked me a question, he goes, what does that mean? Development plans, what does that mean? And I told him, it's, if they are required to put in infrastructure that ties into the city, that's a development plan. If they have to do infrastructure that's going to be dedicated to the city and the city's going to be serving, that's kind of a trigger. When do I have to pay that? When do I have to pay that? And it's, as soon as you're doing water, sewer, streets, drainage,
Yeah.
that tie into a city system, that's your charge.
What, okay, on preliminary site plans,
That would be the same as a site plan, so,
okay, well, because
let's see.
Because you got site plan review, and then you got preliminary site plan review. And so Frisco and Plano have preliminary site plan review that's half of what,
we might take preliminary site plan off, because that's just basically people coming in. Well, I guess that would be kind of like what we're talking about down on 1363 Waco right now. Some guy,
because you are,
he's coming in, he wants to, here's what it looks like preliminarily before he spends engineering money.
That's essentially, they want to know if they can do this or not.
Yeah, right.
so $50 an acre, minimum 250, sound reasonable, or is that, what does your time look like for something like that?
That'd probably be between 2 $200 and $500 depending on the size. So I think an acreage charge would probably be appropriate there.
So, minimum 250 or just $50 an acre?
It's $50 an acre plus, yeah, 250 minimum. That'd be good.
Okay, so Jennifer, that'd be,
That's the other.
council, yep, P and Z, y'all need to speak up. Anytime
That's
you
why I'm
It's-
looking at it.
It's
Now, is that those-
We're looking at Plano's.
Preliminary side and the
Jennifer,
side
$50
plan.
an acre.
Both or just one?
No.
Just the preliminary.
$50 an
Just the
acre,
preliminary.
minimum,
Okay, I'm marking it
250.
out.
It's
It's-
more minimal work.
I'm pulling it from Plano, Jennifer. Do you have Plano on there, Jennifer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
This is
Scroll.
not a very fun
Oh, it's kind of wonky.
keyboard.
Okay, my bad. So on Plano's, you mean to just,
Yeah,
It's-
here you go. There it is.
and so, okay, so if preliminary site plan review is appropriate for Plano and the preliminary, if that cost is appropriate, then it's the site plan, the $100 an acre, minimum 250, is that appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what are we doing for a preliminary site plan? I'm not sure I understand.
That's, they're coming in and wanting to see if what they're intending to do is appropriate.
We're taking about an hour. The beauty shop down on Waco Street right now, the insurance agent trying to come in, he's trying to scheme his parking lot. So he's got me and Jennifer.
Okay, Cooley came in and wanted to go because of the
Right,
two
yeah.
new lots out of the street.
Yeah, it's kind of a consulting fee to help you so that you don't.
So that's right.
Before you dump a whole lot of energy
So
into
that
something.
was, that's considered preliminary when
Yeah,
came in and
yeah.
asked us to.
We see a lot of preliminaries.
Yeah, there's a lot of preliminaries coming in that people just have a scheme in their mind. Take a look at this, does this work? Here's the flaws, here's what we don't.
Yeah, and if I requested this, would you guys approve it?
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's going to require some judgment there on staff to say, to listen to what the person wants to do, and then at some point say, okay, now from this point on, we have to charge you. There will be a temptation to give some,
Well, was it preliminary in anything other than P and Z?
Well, preliminary wouldn't even get to P and Z, you'd only see the final site plan. They would have
Well,
already.
no, I mean, well, we've had a couple come in recently, they just wanted to, okay, we rearranged these lots to be
Okay,
this.
what
Is there a
Cooley
good
did,
chance that you would approve them if I had come in for final approval? And I
Right,
thought that's what
well,
she was
and he, that was residential, so that'd be under the preliminary plat. He can basically get charged around the preliminary plat, charges, and then come back in, so.
so is this site plan review commercial only? Or would it apply to residential?
We don't review site plans on residential.
Okay. So maybe we can put that in parentheses, we can call it, after site plan review, you say commercial only,
Non-residential.
non-residential.
Because apartments,
Industrial.
apartments, we got to, we would review that too.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking we ought not charge a citizen to come in and give an opinion for 10 minutes.
Right.
But if it's gonna take an hour,
Yeah.
to look at every little detail, then he's really getting
and then
a preliminary plat review.
Their development.
Yes.
yeah, wouldn't that be the development plans or the site plan would be separate from? Because you got the residential development plans and you got the.
So if somebody comes in with a preliminary development plan, they don't want to spend all the money, they want to see if this will work, and it's residential.
That's well, it all depends if the lots have been platted and said, if, that would be a preliminary plat and everything that goes with a preliminary plat. So they'd fall under the preliminary plat.
But if they haven't even done a preliminary plan,
Well, but what are they showing me if they don't do a preliminary layout?
so you've got a you've got 100 acres of land that's,
Yeah, coming here.
but if you're gonna annex it, he comes in with this is what we wanna do.
Right.
But he's coming in with, it doesn't meet the requirements of fire lanes, all that kind of stuff. If he spends all that money to do it wrong,
Yeah, which is what we're trying to do in that preliminary site plan phase. But the preliminary plat layout,
but that's what I'm saying. You're saying preliminary site plan just for commercial, but I'm talking about
for
the
residential.
same thing could happen with residential. I don't understand why we
Well,
would.
but when a preliminary, the requirements of a preliminary plat on residential come in, they have to show us the general location of the water lines, the sewer line, the drainage courses, and the streets. So I'm already seeing that on residential.
So it's coming in as a preliminary plat.
Right.
They don't have an idea, it's already.
They've already got, yeah, like that Walt Durande's property there south of the school at 160. He came in and he reconfigured all the lot layouts and things like in the streets. He also showed us what the preliminary water and sewer and everything else was in there too, and the drainage. So we were able to make an assessment that he would have been charged. That would have been under the residential, that would have been under the preliminary plan. Plan amendment and development application, I don't know that you'll ever have those. I mean, plan amendments happen all the time. Those are inspection and construction type deals.
Where do those costs go?
We charge that on the inspection fee. You know, when Scott makes a revision to a plan or something like that, that comes out on the inspection fees, which you already have.
So okay.
You already got those covered.
Okay.
But in the inspection, is there a cost that the developer incurs with changing those?
Well, it's no, yes and no. Because right now you have 3% before, like the Georgetown subdivision started. They gave me a list, they gave me their bid schedules of all the infrastructure that was going to be dedicated to the city at the end of it. You have a 3% inspection fee on that. So we basically, that became the pool of money that we hired an inspector that goes out and inspects the paving, the water, the sewer, the drainage. And then as revisions are made to any of those infrastructures, they submit revised plans, we approve them, and they go out for construction. That part of plan amendment is done out of that. So, and then to answer your question, at the end of the development, at the final, we get their revised final quantities, and then there may be an adjustment up or down if we used it or didn't use it. So.
That's what I was trying to make sure that their cost changes too, so.
Right. But the inspection fee, and once they get approved and they're out in construction, you've already got a 3% fee, which, I looked, there's a few, I think Plano's 4%, a couple other people were 3.5%. But, I mean, your 3% is very competitive. I think Melissa was at 2.5%. But you're very competitive with those, and that just allows us to provide the personnel, construction personnel, to make sure that things are built properly.
That's in the inspection fee, so we don't need to articulate that here.
Right, no.
Okay.
I took that to mean something different, however. I took it to mean somebody's come to you with a preliminary site plan and you review it, and now they come back a month later and want to change it.
Well,
That's how I read it.
Jennifer would charge, if they came through the process and did that, they'd be charged a fee. If they went away for a month or two and came back, they'd have to resubmit and go through the whole process again, so they'd basically have to pay again.
Okay. Well, we're thinking there is no such thing as a site plan amendment.
There's not anything administrative, you're only obligating Frank to approve administrative plats. You're not doing administrative site plan changes.
I'm back on those 16 and 17.
Yeah.
Preliminary site plan and site plan review. If it changes, to me, that's what it means.
Yeah,
If
but
it changes, we're going to charge them.
but it'd be the same, they'd come back through and they'd be charged like a new site plan, so, I mean, in my mind. Sorry, I didn't think I was gonna run through this.
Next, we have the plan development.
Land development, that's, now that's mostly legal, because they've got to write the PD ordinance. Now, working through the, like the, for the Georgetown PD, and the requirements for the common areas, the streets, all that other stuff, that's going to be a lot of staff review, but the actual ordinance is on legal, so that's, and if you look back at my sheet 2 here, I had PD and I estimated what it would be, but I also put plus legal because I know that's a lot, that's pretty intense time to put together a PD with all the requirements on masonry and, all the special conditions you want to put in a PD. Yeah, see, I mean, I estimated 8 hours of staff time and plus legal. So, that's,
So, question, do the other fees still apply? If Georgetown's doing a plan development, do they still pay the preliminary plat and the final plat?
when they come in, yeah, because the PD is just setting up the zoning
Yep.
and the configuration. And then once they come in to do plating and construction plans, then they're into the rest of the fees that we just said.
So
So,
the zoning is a future topic.
yeah, well, so the PD language is probably a zoning fee ordinance, which we're not really addressing here right now. But,
It's good to keep it in perspective.
yeah,
So under plan development, Anna's $500 plus $30 an acre. That's about as competitive as any of them get. What is that going to do as far as the costs are concerned for a typical PD? And I know the PDs are not.
varies so much. I mean, you can have a huge PD and, they break it down in little sections, like this section, they want, this funky, weird housing division, right? And it's very intricate of it.
Yeah, so,
Versus over here, they have this, and then they got a commercial side of it. I mean, I've seen the
Yeah,
PDs, I mean, you
Yeah.
can have a 50-page PD, or you
Right.
can have a 2-page PD because they're just trying to skirt around some stuff, and they want some changes.
Which we had.
right, and
Yeah,
Frank,
so-
I've got that up here. Georgetown, the original Georgetown PD was 126 acres. And so the Anna cost would have been about $4,300. And see, mine was based on, it's green, so it's 300 plus 25 an acre. So I estimated about 3,400, but that would only leave about $700 for legal. And it probably takes more than 1 hour.
Oh, yeah.
to do that.
I mean, if it's one of those, I mean, seriously, we've had a couple that, somewhere else, but, huge document.
Well, I mean, they're a meeting. I mean, is that even appropriate, the 300 plus $10 an acre?
Well,
What the cost?
That's more on the zoning fees. That's going to be a zoning issue.
Right.
You might want to take it off of this development fee chart and leave.
I was gonna ask, do y'all put your fees together, zoning and? You
No,
have it all
that-
in one chart? Okay, it's separate?
Okay, so we're going to pull zoning off of this?
You pull PD off of this.
Okay, but we got zoning right below it, so I thought we were,
Well, yeah,
Unless you want to.
we were just showing you what all those comparatives are. I mean, we can keep doing that if you want, but
I mean, if we, are we going to have to, okay, before we come back to bring something back to council, if we don't address it here, when are we going to address it?
well, that's, yeah. you
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, you probably want
So-
to look at it.
I mean, you've got Salinas, which is a tiered structure, you've got Anna's, which is 300 plus $10 an acre, and then you've got Melissa's, which is 300 plus $15 an acre. So do we go for Melissa because we're following that continuity up top? Or do we go with Anna because that's slightly more competitive? I mean, I'd like to cover our costs.
That's the Salina.
So we're gonna capture.
What's cost?
You're going to capture all that.
I don't see a plus cost on Salina. I see $750.
The one, the line above
As far
it,
as
I guess, for their
development ordinance, it's
development
community.
application.
I
Okay.
mean, what exactly?
It'd be any development.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing,
It's 2,500 plus cost.
Amenities, street,
Is it?
yeah, things
Well,
like
that's a
that.
development.
oh, you're on development application. I'm on plan development.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And plan development is $1,200 for 0 to 1 acre, and then $10 an acre for every acre on top of that. Where Anna is 500 base with $30 an acre.
Which, I think I have those costs here. Yeah, Anna would have been 4,280 based on that, and Melissa would have been, or Salina would have been 2,400, and Melissa would have been 2,100.
Okay.
So if you go out those tables, I calculated what that is based on the 126 acres of the zoning, so you can kind of see what each one of those sitting in that table, you can kind of run out and see what.
And okay, and so the potential for the next PD could be right around 125 to 250 acres.
Mhm.
So in a 125 to 250 acre PD, I know it's going to have a mix of commercial and all kinds of good stuff. What kind of time are we looking at, Regina?
Some of that has to do with the people that come in and bring a PD. I mean, they've drafted it and we just review it
Okay.
versus they're gonna come kind of tell you and then you call us and, we draft it. So it just depends
Sure,
on if
and that's
we-
what I'm requesting up front is their version of what
Yeah.
they'd like to see and then going
Yeah,
back.
that would help. I mean, obviously that's gonna affect our
Okay.
costs some.
So if we're going to expect them to bring us the PD as they see it, and then we go through and start modifying it, then the 500 that Anna, 500 plus $30 an acre is going to be more appropriate as far as our legal costs? Or is that even
It
going
seems
to?
kind of low. I mean,
Okay,
it depends on how well, I mean, if it's written well or if it's, because part of writing the PD, I think, is they study what you usually require.
okay,
And then that way, you can kind of tell, are they asking for a little, or are they asking for a lot, or versus if they just bring you some stock PD that might vary greatly, we would kind of point out to y'all, here's what you would normally want versus this is what they're requesting.
okay.
Does that
So
make sense?
Would it not
McKinney,
be,
well, McKinney has on that 500 also. That's what there's, there's.
Yeah, Salina follows Frisco and Plano, well, follows Frisco.
They
So-
come out pretty close to each other.
We do the
Yeah.
math.
it would be simpler if we simply required them to develop their own PD and we reviewed it. Then this rate can be more manageable. If we had just allowed somebody to bring in an idea and then we draft a PD, I mean, that's like somebody brings in an idea and we draw the plans for it.
Right. The same difference.
I think somehow we need to require that they bring the PD, we review it, accept it, don't accept it, just like we did set of plans. And then our set fees are gonna be a lot closer to being able to match.
Well, it's more scalable if we go with the 500 plus 30, and if we go with the 1,200 plus 10. It's more scalable in the project.
That's true. It's like Palladium's PD, it hadn't been proposed to legal. We're trying to get as much done on the administrative side before it makes it legal. So, I mean, that would be more appropriate. How big is Palladium? Is it, what is it, 10 acres?
14, yeah, 12 and 14, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that'd be more appropriate. So 530, does that sound? Does that sound
That's the
manageable, Regina?
ANA, it's the ANA numbers.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
comes to 920.
So we could come back and revise it if we have to, but, I mean, we need to get somewhere on this, as far as just not, well, with our current time, but also as far as being able to charge for the work that's being done right now. Okay, so
In
530,
that case, because the acreage is actually low, it's a difference of $920 with the 500 days or $1,340 with the 1,200 days for that one. That's because the acreage is low. So you have multi-family building and a lot of complication,
Yes, ma'am.
but you have very low acreage. So then it's not as beneficial, I guess, if you have a $500 rate there. So I don't know.
But most of your PDs are going to be big, and
And so in that case, the $500 one plus 30 an acre is
yeah.
better.
I mean, yeah,
More
Blake,
scalable.
you happen to
More
have the
scalable.
dichotomy of,
Like apartment complexes, you let me repeat it?
Working on one right now.
But that's gonna be one of your issues, is a lot of times the apartment complexes are coming in, they're pretty small, but they want a lot of variation in the PD.
But we're working to,
And those can take time and effort to write those up and
once we
figure all that
establish
out.
this, once we establish this, then we're gonna come back in with apartment.
Okay.
What's appropriate for apartment, that's gonna
Okay.
kind of set the standard for,
And not do PDs for each one.
No.
That would be great.
yeah, but right now, we're just trying to figure out what we want.
Right.
So I guess,
But better
listening to all y'all,
and
while I'm
change.
doing this, is the 500 plus 30 makes more sense.
Is everybody saying,
Well,
everybody agree? We all right? Okay. Jennifer, the 530, please. You already got it up there.
yeah.
You're way ahead of us. Okay. All right, so zoning changes in general, you brought down the 125 per type. Okay, what,
That was
That's
already
the
there.
current.
That's the current. So, and 300
310
plus,
Savannah's?
and Melissa's 300 plus 15 per acre, so.
Okay. Which does, I mean, so what, is the 15 per acre gonna cover our costs, or the 10 per acre gonna cover our costs?
Based on what you just did on the 380, I'd probably say the 15, just with the staff time.
Okay.
And then, you
So
know,
300 plus 15, Jennifer? So we've got, okay, so zoning appeal would be the same,
yeah, I mean, that's, they come in with a zoning case, you deny it, they come back, they're just restart, they have the same fee because they're
Because
just
we're
coming in
going through
with,
the process
they're coming in
all
with the
over
same
again.
process,
because
so,
they're appealing to, okay.
yeah. So,
All right. So
We the
300
only one that have that?
zoning
Well,
appeal?
I mean, we can take that category off because the zoning change period in appeal is a change. So, I mean, that could really technically,
Yeah, Frisco and Plano are the only two that have an appeal. But, I mean, we can take it off because it doesn't look like Alstyne or Melissa have it.
Is that the appeal where they're denied by council and then they
yeah,
resubmit?
yeah. But in my terminology, if they get denied by council and they come back, they're going to modify something.
Sure.
They're going to go through the whole process again, so
I agree.
they basically become a zoning change again. You just keep them in that loop until they.
Okay, so you're going to eliminate that category, Jennifer? Okay. All right.
I don't know,
Zoning compliance inspection.
that would be a Bureau Veritas.
Okay.
So
So if they're charging 100 in Anna, then we probably need to charge 100 because that's what our cost is probably close
Is that
to.
part of their plan review?
Might be.
So it's built within their plan review? But do we have to have that stated, or is it because, since we have an agreement with them, that it's already within? My only question about not having it in there, we're currently with Veritas. I can't tell you when we're not going to be with Veritas, but when we're not with Veritas, we need to have that fee in there, okay? So,
Well, and
Just
they
because they charge
they
it.
do it for Anna, so.
okay.
I mean-
So my recommendation would be to go ahead and put it in there, similar to Anna's, because yeah.
Yeah, 100 and 100 then for the zoning. The zoning verification letter is somebody comes in and asks Jennifer what the zoning is. Well, Palladium requested the zoning and the utility verification letter.
Wow, that's $200.
Yeah, that'd be $200 that we get based on that, so.
Hmm. so,
The zoning.
I haven't been zoning plan, other than the planning process and building permit.
Zoning verification
Do
letter.
you get realtors contacting you asking you for verification?
Well, the only verification we've had in the 3+ years I've been here is for Palladium. They just wanted verification of the existing zoning and the future zoning and the availability of utilities. So that's the only one that's ever asked for that. I used to do them down in Richardson all the time. I didn't do the zoning, I did the utility verification.
Realtors call and say, hey, what's this zone? Oh, it's SF1. Okay, hang up the phone.
Well,
Because
but if
they wanted it stated.
But if they wanted an official letter from the city, then you say.
Yeah, that's why it says letter, I think.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
means
well,
you.
my question is really still on the compliance inspection.
No. Well, that's just something that Anna's doing, so you might ask.
there's a rhyme or reason to it.
You might
because-
ask Ty
Yeah.
what that is.
One thing I can think is you say, can I put this here? You gotta go get to the ordinance and say, yes or no, you can put it in
Yeah,
a tire store. and-
right. Well, it's the thing down on Waco Street right now. We want to put an insurance agency in there. Can I do that under my current zoning? You know, it's just a verification that I'm looking at buying this property. Is it zoned for this? And if it takes more than a phone call answer, then you have to write a letter saying the following uses are allowed, and that's when you,
Okay,
So if they
floodplain,
wanted that specifically
floodplain
stated
development.
in a letter signed by so-and-so,
Yeah.
then
yep.
floodplain development.
Don't skip the SUPs.
yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, do
Okay, my bad.
not skip this.
My bad. Okay, so.
SUPs are just like PD, or just like PDs.
You're right, and we've seen quite a few of those. So do we want to go for the same?
That would
as we did
put you on the
PD?
high, that would put you on the high end, 500 plus 30.
Yeah. How about the 300 plus 10? Is that going to be appropriate?
Yeah.
Because Salina's 500 plus 10, Anna's 300 plus 10.
A lot of them are 300 plus 10.
So 300 plus 10,
Okay.
okay? Is this all unbearable, Russell? Is this unbearable or? Floodplain,
Is that septic use permit, one-time permit?
specific use permit.
That's
so
for
they
if
come in
somebody
and want
comes,
something.
yeah, if that,
Oh, I thought I heard you say septic.
No,
no, that's specific use. That's somebody comes in with a special use to do
No, I get you.
alcohol sales or whatever's in your specific use
There's a lot of-
category, yeah. You
all right,
got- you got-
floodplain development,
The specific.
Not only
use
no, but
permit,
hell no.
How much,
300 plus $2 an acre.
and we did not do the zoning verification letter.
We did?
Yeah.
Zoning verification letter was $100. Okay, so floodplain development, what are we,
I can't see reason that you would ever allow anybody to develop in a floodplain. So we.
Now, you go to McKinney, you go to Frisco, I mean, all the towns have developed, but typically it's park use,
Right.
and there are structures, but they can be flooded, they don't ruin.
Right, but
So-
you're not going to allow any private developer, you,
But
Yeah.
I think when you say floodplain development, are you gonna have a definition that specifies what that means? Because as a developer, I see any development, I
well,
can see that.
and I
fee.
think right now in the new version of the subdivision ordinance, it says no development in a FEMA regulated floodplain at all, which is what handles that.
So no meandering way and Winter Road.
Yeah, well,
With a flood,
I mean,
in Section
you
8 or
had your-
whatever, they would have been there.
you had your storm of record here Saturday.
Yeah.
The good thing about Van Alstyne is you're at the top of the hill,
Oh, no.
and all your floodplains are away from you. So, although you did have some flooding
I watched the
exposure.
water go down the street.
although you had some flooding exposure, you didn't have a lot of channel flooding because you're at the top of the hill. So, and looking at the floodplain, you know, you have to go out east of town and get into Sister Grove Creek or go out to Whites Creek on the west side of town before you actually saw any kind of stream flooding. So it's out in your ETJ right now. There are no FEMA regulated floodplains in the city limits currently. You know, they start right at the south end of Driscoll Hill on the other side of County Line Road. But right now, there is a clause in there that says no development in the FEMA regulated floodplain, and I'd say you hold to that 100%. You never vary, you never allow variance, so that really.
Does that include no type of parks?
Well, parks is a whole different issue. I mean,
Well, that's what I was talking about. You develop inside of a park, you develop structures, you have tennis courts, is that not part of?
but is
You
that
need
going to be?
permits for all of that.
Is
so
that going to be done by the developer?
Everything that I've done, yes.
Could be part of a plan.
Because the city, it was part of, in other words, like the parks deal with planned development for a community. We either put in a certain amount of park or we pay the city a fee, right? So what is very typical for somebody, a developer, to come in that buys a large acreage of land that has floodplain is to work with the city of utilizing that floodplain for parks. I mean, so that's my question is, do we say nothing happens in the floodplains? Because some of the most beautiful parks are in the floodplains.
Well, but yeah.
Oh, Russell.
But we're talking about residential,
Makes sense.
or we're talking about residential structures and commercial structures, right?
Well, that's
We're
what
talking about
I'm trying to get
municipal structures. I got you.
definition of, because if we're saying no development period in floodplain, I don't know where that line's being drawn of.
I got you. Okay, so,
Yeah, but Frank, you're right, no residential or no commercial. You can have tennis
We can have
courts,
municipal.
pavilion,
No occupied structure.
no occupiable.
That's just all I think we need some sort of clarification
Okay.
yes, sir.
there.
Okay.
Okay, so would that be in addition to plan development? I mean, you're not going to just come in and develop in floodplain, right?
Well,
So the plan development would trump that or not?
yes.
It would be incorporated into the plan development. So if we're going to allow soccer fields, baseball fields, or something like that down the floodplain, it's not an occupied structure that you're allowing, because you're not going to necessarily have the dugouts that you do,
Right.
everything that's at or above the flood.
So are we going to charge that kind of planning that Russell's talking about within the fees for the plan development or in addition to?
How does that work?
And typically, that would be within the PD.
Yeah.
And
Okay. All right, so we just build it into that.
Okay, so then we don't need it, but I agree with Russell, we need a clarification.
Okay.
Do you have that on there because it's an extra engineering type look at it?
Yeah, well,
It's
okay.
like an extra thing, is it? I guess it's not.
It'd be that, yeah, it's what I'm waiting for on Driscoll Hill right now.
Because Salina and Gainesville, which Gainesville's got plenty of floodplain, but Salina's got 300 for 3 to 20 acres and then 500 for 20 plus acres. If we incorporate that, then somehow we've got to, I mean, if we're not going to occupy structures, I mean, if we're just strictly doing recreational
Well, what you're doing.
facilities,
Yeah, what we're doing is we're establishing, this is like what we're doing in Driscoll Hill, we're establishing what that flood level is
yeah,
so that the house are 2 feet above that.
yes, sir.
So, yeah, I can see
But
where.
our
So
plan
we-
development rate is already 500 plus 30, so would that cover it? That's-
Well, but what you're, this is the actual review of the hydraulic study.
Oh, gotcha.
That is in addition to,
All right.
so.
Okay, so if we put trails, we put fields, soccer fields, baseball fields in the floodplain, we allow that, then how does that,
Well, yeah, that's not really, it's all the stuff, where is the limit? Where do you draw those lines around those creeks to determine what that floodplain is where I'm at now, not what's inside of it, but what's.
So we're not going to establish a fee, we're just going to state that nothing outside of,
Yeah, well, but probably the $500 is going through and reviewing their hydraulic model and what their flood elevations are, and then what happens inside of that or outside of that.
okay, so $500?
I think $500 a base fee
Okay.
would be
All right.
plenty to review, and it's,
This shows Salina is the only one you can have to charge.
Yeah, but he's got Anna right there, or
None
who
of
is
the- none of
that?
the other ones even have a
I
charge.
think Gainesville had it very.
Yeah, I got Salina, and then Gainesville's got $500 on your second sheet.
Gainesville's really got it.
Yeah, just $500.
So is that for anything? that
No, they got,
has
it's
any-
250, I'm sorry.
for
It's
floodplain?
250 in Gainesville.
So
No,
even if you
that-
had a little 1, 2
Okay,
acre.
there's only two out
That
there
would
that
be-
have anything.
Floodplain, that is to review the hydraulics. They're gonna do what they call a HEC-RAS and HMS. It's the industries.
So when do we know, how do we know when to charge that? Any development that looks like it's close to a floodplain?
Well, yeah, based on the FEMA maps, I'll have like I said, everything in downtown right now, but once we start getting south of county line and out west of,
Understood. I'm just wondering when our city staff will know to tack that on.
I will.
Engineering
That'll
helps,
be.
engineering helps identify what's what.
You could put an asterisk by it, like, submission of,
Hydraulic submission.
yeah,
Hydraulic.
triggers this additional fee.
Okay. Would you do that, Jennifer?
She read it.
All right. Okay, so Board of Adjustments appeal, this is council. Salina charges $250, Anna charges $200. Ours is currently $100 for variance and $50 for other. This is probably the closest, most appropriate fee that y'all charge in the whole scale. Frisco charges $150 plus postage. You want to follow Anna, do $200. You want to follow Frisco and do $100 plus postage, which is wonky.
I would suggest 200.
200, please. Okay, so Board of Adjustments, annexation application, $100 in Anna, and $250 your actual cost in Salina. So
350.
what's an annexation application, Jennifer? what-
Yeah, that's the multiple, that's a lot of staff time and a lot of public hearings and things like that. This is where,
I've got you, but we've got to stay competitive.
Yeah.
Besides of just our cost.
yeah. Well, this is,
Because if they're annexing in, we've got staff costs, but they're annexing in for a specific purpose, because they're
Right.
not coming in. Nobody wants to come into the city and be taxed by the city for the fun of it.
yeah.
Plano's got 50.
This would be the thing to do for free.
Personally,
Give it away, something with.
Yeah, exactly.
okay, so $100 like Anna, or what do we,
I would say so.
$100?
Keep it, as long as we're
$100
a voluntary town,
What are you gonna
You know
do?
something is,
desirable.
Robert,
something is
you, we have,
wrong.
Sign
this is
permission.
it, you know?
Take that off. Just delete that. That's in your sign ordinance.
Okay.
That doesn't need to be
All
addressed.
right, thank you. Okay, all right, so how does council and P and Z feel about the fees? We haven't heard from Leslie. We've heard from Herb whenever he raises his hand. Good job. Robert, feeling all right? Kimberly?
You're hearing
Yes,
Robert.
Robert feels fine.
Yeah. Larry?
Am I going to answer?
How do you feel, you're like Jennifer, you just keep writing. How do you feel about these fees?
Pick on Jennifer.
This is the last time you get to vote on it.
No,
That's true.
It'll be too late.
That's true.
we'll be talking about them seeing how applicable they are all the time.
He talked about Larry.
Oh, yeah. I don't get to vote in, this is it, buddy.
This is it.
Yeah, you don't need to vote now, Patty.
There
you go.
Okay, all right. What is the next issue? Lynn?
Next issue, well, we got fees taken care of. Before I get to yours, Virginia, sorry about that, is the screening. We talked about, remember this from the slideshow last time?
Yes, sir.
You allow 100% masonry screens, you allow the combo screens. I just went through the slideshow here. All the way back.
Have you got enough for everybody, Lynn?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have an extra copy for us? Sorry, Russell.
Again, the zoning, screening issue is for what you want your major thoroughfare. Do you want to separate your major thoroughfares from your subdivisions? And the top picture, of course, is County Road. And what you're going to see from Kelly without screening is you get new fence, old fence, brick entries, some landscape. It's all over the place, no sidewalks.
And none of these people even have gates to get back there.
And are they technically required to mow to the right of way of Kelly?
Was it actually, we voted for that 2 years ago, or so we're required to mow.
So, you know, again, how do you treat the edge, you know, again, do you want to have the concrete canyon, the masonry canyons of Plano and Richardson? Or do you want to have, and then, so, and I know last time we got a semblance that you were talking about doing the combination screens. That there's maintenance of the landscape and of any masonry that you have. Like I said, Plano right now is using, well, it's been about 5 years since I talked to them, but they have over $1 million a year in their budget just to fix screening walls on thoroughfares. You know, and they're 260,000 people, so.
No, they could have had their screen, they could have had all the screening that they've got if they had put it into their PDs for the homeowner associations to take care of it.
Right.
So really, truly, I mean, there's,
But what happens if somebody comes in, like Georgetown Village number 2, comes in right around the school on the south side, that 162 acre lots, comes in, he's just straight zoning. Well, he is part of the Georgetown community, I guess. But Driscoll Hill is straight zoning. It's SF1. So if they don't come in with a PD, and the zoning doesn't require screening,
so we're.
then it's subdivision or that, so, you know, and a lot of people, if they don't come in with PDs, and they just come in with straight zoning, you don't have that hammer
Right.
to figure out what you want to do. So this is your one chance to talk about what type of screen and, you know, if you're going to do the mixed screen with half masonry wall, half green or wrought iron or whatever, there's a maintenance cost to that too. So, you know, it'll be new for 5 years or until the first car goes somewhere. But then after that, you got to match it. And Plano's biggest problem is having matching bricks to meet all the different brick types they have out there going forward. So, you know, I brought a copy of what the Driscoll Hill, this is back from 2, but this is what they provided. You know, they had come up with a landscape screening buffer and some masonry.
That's considered a combination, right?
That's a combination, right? How do you
So
do that?
you're, if you go the combination route, how would you say that we're requiring full screening, but you can have a combination of these types of fences, materials, plants,
Trees,
and then specify that everything has to be screened at least by 6 feet height and all that kind of stuff. But we can keep it, with the mixed screening, we can keep it a large variant of acceptable.
Right, they have creative license to use everything that's in your palette.
Which will actually bring some variety to the town, and not just having solid masonry screening everywhere.
The other screening requirement you have is between mixed zoning, between residential zoning and non-residential, industrial, or office, or commercial. You require a screening there too. And right now, it's only wood, and/or, it says wood and/or masonry. So they have a choice, like Golden Chick came in, and, there was an existing wood fence there. We basically told them, well, that wood fence is on the residential side, you still have to screen it. So we got them to screen it. Don't know, that was more, I don't know if that was a bluff, but it worked.
Green screen,
The green screening, so.
Can we,
So-
can we have a variant? So I've noticed some of the towns that have done stuff in, they've had, based off of the distance between construction. So you have, in other words, like Golden Chick, they are right up against the residential neighborhood. Whereas if you had a parkway between, you've got a buffer, you've got a large area of buffer. Where I've seen where they're real close, they require, some places require masonry screening upwards of 8 feet. And then, but in that same area, a certain distance, they would allow vegetative screenings.
And that'd be kind of a mixed screen.
Yes.
So, anyway, but that's an issue we talked about, the mixed screens and allowing that. If we can have, we can put in the design manual, we've been talking about putting together all your water and sewer streets. We can do a screening, we just wanted to make sure that the mixed screen, all that other stuff is kind of where you want it to be, and then we can come up with like I said, we'll give them the palette to work from, but not give them, unless you want it to be very specific about, you have a tree every 40 feet, you have shrubs every 3 feet on the center, you can get as detailed as you want, but what will happen out of that is you'll just get a lot of variance requests.
So generally, are you requesting that, are you recommending that we go with Frisco? And that would still keep it to where, like with Golden Chick, the living screen would be something that would have to come through with a special permit?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Anytime you do go back to just strictly living screen, I think that would be.
okay, so the recommendation is to follow Frisco with the solid, with running all the variables as far as the solid, the screen wall, topographic change, and then the combination. So all three of those are allowable as long as they meet certain parameters.
Right.
And the parameters are defined within what you just
Can you
showed.
say what the three options are?
So the three options
You can go to page.
on this page. We've got who allows what? We've got Plano allows solid and combination.
Okay.
Frisco allows solid. They allow screening wall with topographic change, and then a combination. And then the living screen, and it's only allowed with a special permit like the Golden Chick. McKinney allows solid, combination, and living screen, and Richardson only allows solid and living screen. So if this is where we vary or deviate from the Plano method and go for Frisco,
Well,
trying to look for.
And it's because you have
More
topography out here, so we can use we can use the benched retaining walls
I like
to
that.
accomplish that, which.
What does council think about that? Sound agreeable? B and Z?
What do you mean by solid?
So solid would be like what you have going through Plano and Richardson, where you've got the canyons of just a solid masonry wall.
We have
It's a
a-
6-foot,
Village Parkway.
it's
Still
a six,
talking
On the
masonry.
north side.
Village Parkway,
On the
Village
north
Parkway
side.
actually has a few shrubs and has
But on
some
the north
trees.
side,
Yes, sir.
Village Parkway is all
Yes,
solid.
sir. And you're right, on the south side,
It's mixed.
yeah.
Okay, so that's solid. Now, screening wall with topographic change, what's that?
That's one where you just have, because of the relief of the road going through, you have like little 3-foot retaining walls. There's a graphic of it.
Okay.
Pictures of it.
Okay. Combination means?
Combination
those two
means
things?
you can have wrought iron and masonry with a living screen with plants. You can have like a Fotinia hedge or something that, the combination is, that's in there too.
Okay, that's what's on the south side of Village Parkway.
If we don't allow living screen, then how can,
We
We
could
can
allow
allow
living
living
screen, just
screen.
want to make sure that we see, that it comes, the council sees exactly what it is that they're proposing for the living screen in lieu of a solid wall or a combination or a screen wall. That way y'all see exactly what is being proposed.
Living screens,
Yeah.
okay. Requirement of height being, let's just call it out 6 foot. That is when it's installed and not when it will be fully matured.
Right, yeah, exactly. And that's what you need.
I've seen that mistake before.
Yes, yes. And when they bring in, like if they come in with 6-foot high Fotinias that do that, and they're gonna grow to 25 feet, you know, that's, I mean, that variance is still, that's only got, well, it depends if you leave it with P and Z to approve that, or the council wants to approve the final variance to that. We haven't talked about that yet, but, yeah, that might be one of the things that you leave with P and Z. And understand, and we'll point out that, hey, Fotinias will grow to 25 feet. So if you gotta have a requirement to keep it trimmed, you gotta make that statement in your variance, or your acceptance of it, so.
Do all four sound amenable, or what do you think?
I want to stay away from living screen.
Even if they're allowed to come to
Well,
you with a
I
permit?
don't, no, they can come to the council,
Okay, and that's what we're.
And then what did you say, Joey?
but I don't like combination, but it looks like combination, you can get living screen without,
Mr. Clay, what did you say we can't hear?
huh?
You were talking into the.
Oh, okay.
You were saying.
I was saying I was against having living screen, and therefore, if combination is considered to be part of it as a living screen, then I would be against it as well, unless you got approval from the council to do it.
Okay.
I think living screen is what we approved for Driscoll. And that-
It's got a combination. It's got a wall, and then it's also got a living screen.
Okay.
So living screen is strictly the double oak trees or shrubs. But if we look at,
I only have one copy of
the screen walls, view fence, this is the combination. The combination would be a fence without having to come to y'all, but it'd be a living screen.
If we look on the south side of
Yes.
Village
Village Parkway right now,
Yes, sir.
there's a bunch of small little bushes that aren't as correctly listed, and it's supposed to be covered, right?
True.
Well, that's what I was trying to clarify, is
Yeah.
that we need
And
to
then-
require that
Are we gonna have rules in there that says that when you plant it, it's gotta be 6 foot tall?
Yes, sir.
You gotta maintain it at 6 foot tall for forever and ever?
Yes, sir.
Or-
We can write those in
Okay,
there.
I want those rules in
Well,
there.
one of the
Can
things
be
you have
about
missing
6
is
to 8.
approved species
So 6 foot
list, so
minimum
would
width.
that help with that?
Right, and then, yes, and and we talked about that, we're gonna have, one of the other slides was an approved species list, and we talked about having drought tolerant, minimal irrigation, and, Texas
You're
native.
gonna have to have an HOA that owns this, right?
Hmm?
Are we gonna have somehow where an HOA owns this?
That's the only way you do that is in a PD.
Well, it's got, if it's gonna be that they can go build it, and then the city has to go out and trim it down all the time to maintain it,
Well,
then
that's
that's not what I want.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if you have if Mantua or any of the other subdivisions that are out come in with a base zoning and not a PD, you don't have say-so on, eventually that turns out, that's why you need to give me the hammer to say, no, you're gonna have to maintain it. We design it so it's maintained by the
Okay.
private side versus the city having to take over maintenance of it,
Okay.
which is what happened in Plano.
Okay.
The city ended up, they required alleys. You got street, wall, and alleys backing up to it. Well, that's all in between public right-of-way. Guess who, the wall instantly became city property. That's why they're spending $1 million a year trying to keep them maintained. So, but that's the kind of rules that we need to hear.
Okay, write those rules in.
And the city of Plano actually put it in their deal, you will do this and then you will give us this property. So they did it to themselves.
Yeah.
You'll build something for us to
Well,
maintain.
we want.
That's what developers did, they built it for them and then gave it to the city took over.
So is that pretty clear?
Yep.
Okay, so y'all are amenable to all four. However, the caliper and the size of the shrub or tree needs to be articulated as well as.
And as the
HOA
long-term
maintains.
maintenance, the design needs to, long-term maintenance
Does not fall on the city.
does not fall on the city.
Whatsoever.
So,
Okay, what's the next?
Species.
the species list will be, the species list will already be in there, so we'll have that too. That's included in what we talked about.
Will they enforce it? Who will enforce that?
City has to.
That'll be during,
Presently, there's a species type of tree that you have to plant in Georgetown, but nobody ever enforced it.
during,
It's
It's
The HOA's got it.
I guess it's in the HOA document.
that could be, if
So the HOA is supposed to.
if it's a combination screen wall and things like that, it'd be done at inspection, so city inspection forces would do that, so.
Okay.
What's next, Lynn?
Parking lots. Right now, you allow number 2 base rock parking lots, asphalt parking lots, and concrete parking lots in your current subdivision ordinance. I obviously would ask you to get rid of your number 2 base rock
Yeah.
Right.
and whether or not you want asphalt parking lots at all.
No.
Concrete.
Concrete?
Concrete.
Yep, concrete.
Is everybody getting Z? Y'all okay with that?
Okay?
Concrete? Okay.
Now, this is for
Parking lot for.
new development.
Section 20.
First Baptist Church doesn't have to go down
Yeah.
for concrete.
No.
No, unless they
Not
build,
currently.
they built a new church.
Too.
Okay, okay.
The new one, can't ever go back.
This is new development.
This is new development.
I'm just, I'm not,
Okay, so we're not gonna backtrack
Okay,
like
so I don't
that
know.
for this guy.
I thought we were getting rid of the old ones.
Well, we are getting rid of the old ones.
Okay.
But some of the requirements.
Okay, we got, it's after 9:15.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, before Regina starts, did get an email from Bill Benton today. He did want to address whether the city was going to require alleys and subdivisions or not. He had talked about the success that McKinney had in Stonebridge, not requiring alleys because of the upkeep, the security issue, and neighbors not getting to know one another because they entered and left their properties through there. So, is that something that the council wants to do?
Not knowing my neighbors, not preferred. I wish I had known.
Do you wish you had?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so does council want to require alleys? Are they not required? Or what is the feeling from council? I know that Russell said that the higher end subdivisions tend to have alleys, but are we going to make it a requirement?
Let's just go around. Aaron, how do you feel about that?
I don't see a purpose for them.
Chief Barnes stated a safety issue potentially, so I think they should not be required. I think, if someone wants to submit a proposal, but not.
How much you property?
I say not required, make the streets wide enough where you park your cars around.
You know,
'Cause I mean-
this is okay.
I did. Good for you. Get him to talk.
Okay, Kelly.
I'm in favor of having alleys because I think that they make the neighborhood look a lot nicer and keep the cars off the street. and
If
out
they'll
the
get
back.
off the street.
And, you know, and I think that, well, no, I mean, you can still park further out. I just think that it improves the value of the neighborhood and the looks of the neighborhood.
Okay,
Do you wish that
Required.
do you hope that I mean, do you want us to require them to where they have to be there, or they're an option for the developer?
I would like to see them as a requirement unless we have unless it's overridden by, you know, zoning or the council saying that, you know, you have a justifiable reason for not doing it.
Okay.
Okay, Russell?
And this is for, a planned development obviously can do what it, can be approved with and without alleys. So this is really, somebody comes in
This is
and,
your base zoning, yeah,
Base zoning.
anything that's applied to base zoning, whether or not you require alleys. Including up to industrial and commercial.
Y'all aren't voting on this tonight, I'm just trying to get an idea. So
Well,
we're,
we've
well,
got,
here's,
we're trying to shore up the.
when you're talking about something that is not coming through a PD, the ability and everything's gonna be in the front. Means your electrical's gonna be in the front, all your utilities are gonna be in the front. You don't have the opportunity to put any of the transformer, any of that type of stuff in the back. And on top of the commercial deal is a big deal to me, because that can really, residential, there's good and bad, but then the commercial, man, I think that opens the door for some bad situations that we don't have a hammer on. I really think for sure with commercial, we need alleys.
can't we divide it up between residential and commercial?
Yeah, you can. I think you can.
You
I
can
mean,
require it with commercial and optional with residential.
Yeah, that's part of it. That could be written into the ordinance, so, I mean, I think,
Well, alleys.
for alleys, yeah.
Well, there's actually something on page 40, it talks about upon request of P and Z can waive the requirement for alleys in residential subdivisions where the minimum lot size is at least 10,000 feet.
Okay,
So
so
the
larger
theory of that
lots.
is the big lots don't need an alley.
Okay.
And that helps you with the parking in front and your utilities and,
So you're saying the houses, the bigger the house, the less likely they are to need an alley?
They need they would probably have a side entry.
Is that what you're saying?
Side entry.
Okay.
right, they can have a swing garage, they can have just more frontage to park a car out there. Because if you start getting into patio homes, where your frontage is this big, you know, and your lot is, you know, a quarter of an acre or less, right? The theory is that alleys make sense, because it gets the cars in the back, it gets, you know,
But what she just said was 10,000 acres, so.
10,000
it's
square
out-
feet.
Yeah, 10,000
That's not
square
very
feet.
big.
10,000 square feet or bigger, you can waive it, otherwise it's required.
Right.
Right, so like in Georgetown. which all of
Georgetown,
them-
you would have to have alleys.
You'd have to have alleys.
Yeah.
Right. Which, on the other half of Georgetown where they have alleys, they don't have to have their trash out in front. They don't have to have the electric boxes and all that kind of thing out in front of their houses. Looks like nice.
But commercial should be a separate thing, is that
Yeah,
what
it'd be a simple-
could be separate and required to
I
have
don't
an
know,
alley?
does
I don't think
commercial,
we're discussing
does non-residential end up going into zoning or the subdivision requirement? Can we address alleys for non-residential in the subdivision ordinance? The
Well,
question.
the way I have it in here, the draft, starting on 38, is it's talking about residential, basically, single-family, duplex, triplex, fourplex, so. I thought we were talking residential.
Okay.
So that's why.
Well, we
I'm
were,
talking about
but we also
Right.
switched.
Okay, well.
The
okay,
commercial,
can we-
the
Stay
non-residential.
on residential?
Yeah, can we decide this first and then?
Yeah.
Okay, so residential.
So that's, I'm just telling you, that's an option.
I got
can
you.
say you have to have alleys unless you meet this size, and then PNC can weigh the requirements for alleys.
But that's a big.
But you can write it however you want to write it, I'm just saying that's one way to write it.
What, Lynn?
The 10,000 square feet on a lot is bigger than anything in Georgetown. It's bigger than anything that you just annexed out around the college.
Okay,
It's
so-
big, it's bigger than
The other thing, if
anything
you
in
don't have
Bristol.
alleys, then the streets have got to be much larger.
Wider.
You need parking spaces, yeah.
I mean,
Parallel.
You go through the Georgetown Heights,
Oh, good.
and new one.
New one, north.
It's all front entry, there's no alleys, and their streets still aren't wide enough for people on both sides, it's horrible.
Well, no, actually, based on the fire department, the north side does have enough room to park on both sides.
No, but-
The fire truck can go through.
It does,
So they're-
one way.
One way.
What I'm saying is for the ordinance, if we're going to say it's okay without alleys, I think then we need to say the streets need to be wide.
4 cars wide.
Well, right now your streets are wider by 6 foot than any other requirement around
Any other city?
any other city around. Because they require on a residential street a 26-foot back-to-back street, but they usually have alleys with it. You're already at 31 feet.
Okay, so we're wider than.
You're already
Okay.
you're already 6 foot, yeah, 6 foot wider if you go back on pavement to back pavement. So you've already got that written into your current ordinance. So that's.
So do y'all, I mean, now that Regina's read that, I know I'm going back, but how do y'all feel? You still want to not require alleys? Robert, you're gonna require alleys, Larry, not require alleys? Bill, you'd like to see them, Russell? Not necessarily, or?
I get a little bit nervous about, I think as long as our streets, are good.
Well,
Just trying to think of some of the problems that we encounter.
Requiring the wider streets where there are no alleys would be important, obviously. Yeah.
The 31 foot.
I'm just,
Is this there?
you're requiring 31 foot with or without alleys.
Whether you have alleys or don't have alleys, doesn't make a difference.
Yeah,
This is across.
you're already getting wider.
Thing.
Okay.
Straight.
What if it was alleys with alleys and the swinging entrance instead of just the?
Well, then it goes to lot size, because you
Yeah.
to have a lot frontage in your current zoning, you'd have to have the bigger lot.
Much bigger.
The only question I might have, Regina, is instead of 10,000 square feet, you might lower it to 8.
Yeah,
or
just
something.
pick a number, I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
whatever
10
number you
tends
feel
big,
comfortable
I
with.
mean,
But I think that number is associated with frontage, is how I would see that number.
yeah.
And utilities.
Well, I mean, the majority
what's
doesn't.
the, just out of curiosity, do we have what Frisco's ordinance is on there? Do we know?
I don't know if I have that. I have a stack this high of everybody else's. It's really heavy, and then I actually didn't bring them all tonight. I
I
gotta,
have that same stack, and I didn't bring it.
yeah, seriously, I think I
I'll
need
tell
to
you
say
what, I'll push that out to y'all when you get it, Regina. What were your other issues?
okay, so, okay, so we're leading to not required though.
Well,
That's what we're leaning towards, but let's see what
Okay.
Frisco's is.
Let me see, I got a couple questions, I guess. Combo plats, are we getting rid of those? Y'all had those before, and I had in the draft to get rid of those. If you want to get rid of
that's
those
doing a
and just
preliminary and a
do the
final plat at the same
preliminary
time.
final, Which
And-
follows most other cities, by the way,
To get rid of it.
to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd never heard of them
If
until
it
I.
streamlines the process, then that's probably, what do you have heard?
P&Z didn't get to give our opinion on the alleys.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you did. You said you wanted an alley.
Well,
You didn't like it, but
well, the reason, I mean, I have a couple of reasons. I mean, and obviously the electricity being in the back
Yes, sir.
allows a lot of things there. And I would move that also a whole lot quicker if I didn't have to have another garage in front of my house. I mean, I think that's the most distracting thing that there is two garage doors instead of a house there.
You also don't have to share a back fence.
But,
That's true.
that, you know,
That's a good point.
utilities definitely, and that type of thing. And if you do have an alley, you know, people, the garage should be built in the back. If you're gonna, I mean, somebody could have an alley and still put the garage up front. That would be, that would develop, you know, doing that and just back and out back there.
What do you think, Liz?
Still thinking.
Okay. Jim, and you liked alleys?
I'm comfortable letting the marketplace make that decision.
Okay. All right.
And I assume that as a developer, I mean, if you have, let's say, I don't know, 100 acres or whatever it is, if you have to have alleys, that means you're going to there will be able to build less homes than if they didn't have to have alleys.
Right.
So I don't know if that would be deterrent.
Tract home builders going to build front entry garages if they don't have to build alleys.
So
It's
that's what I'm
not
saying.
economic.
No, I'm saying that instead of building 100 homes because they have to have alleys, maybe they can only build 80 homes.
Right.
So that theoretically, I guess, could be a deterrent to some developers that, okay, I can't get enough money, there's not enough profit because I'm stuck building alleys. I don't know.
Even Prosper allows you doors.
Okay.
You got some really nice houses in front of
To make sure that at the front.
The garage
The alley, the
doors.
garages have what, wood
Yes,
fascia or something
yes,
like that?
exactly. Garage doors, kind of, they're really rough looking ones, so they kind of.
And
yeah.
could we
It's a
incorporate that in
setback.
instead, to where if it is a front entry, it has to have the garage door has to have a wood fascia?
That's in
or something?
zoning. That needs zoning.
Okay, my bad.
No, I
That's
mean,
an overlay, or is that something, that's not an overlay district, that's,
No.
what is that?
that's,
And they're
No, I only see that in PDs, I guess, that says you, because usually the PD would be that alternate, you know, like the city would require an alley, but they allow you to do the PD alternate, saying you want no alleys, but we'll have fancy garage doors. So that's kind of how you get that compromise.
That's what they're doing here
That'd be
now.
something to
All
consider.
all the houses are different, but all of them have
Right,
the
so
same
that-
garage doors.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a way to get it, if that's what you want, is the fancy garage doors, is you tell them, you have to do alleys, but we'll do that, that's what I was saying, that alternative, you come before P and Z or council, and you would say, we want fancy garage doors.
Okay.
Zoning ordinance already requires a two-car garage.
Okay,
It'd be
so-
fairly straightforward to add on to that.
How about a two-car
If it
garage?
faces forward.
How about a two-car garage big enough to fit two cars?
Well, now I'm gonna come back and say what kind of car you want.
Everybody has.
but that's zoning, that's a zoning ordinance.
That's in the zoning.
That's a zoning ordinance, that's not a.
Okay, I know.
All right.
Okay.
What was
keep
that?
going. Okay, so there's also a section in here about, that's just kind of a different idea, I want to see if y'all liked it. Regarding that we would look at the homeowners agreements, so we kind of feel comfortable that all these people going in, it's a kind of a standard clause in other cities, I think, or I've been in other cities, where it's in here about, so they know it's, I think it's actually on the plat, that says you're in an HOA and it's going to be, it's just more notice to people that they're going to be responsible for their common areas, which usually these screening walls, you know, it's going to be the screening walls in the HOA and you're going to be paying for the screening walls, in other words. So that's, if everybody's okay with that? Yep. Okay.
Always disclosed, that'd be outstanding.
Yeah, okay. Visibility ordinance, page 24. Lots of cities have those corner clips and how you gotta pull stuff back so you can safely get around corners. I think I noticed y'all don't have that.
There's in the existing subdivision ordinance, site visibility.
Is there?
There's one little bitty statement.
It's a little tiny one?
It's a
Okay.
little bit, I think it's section 24.
Okay.
So, but, yeah, you can pull that, but yes. I mean,
Yeah, I would just recommend that y'all have that in there so we get, you, as you're building out new, we keep
Yeah.
all those corners really safe because that's your big accident
Yes, ma'am.
spots, okay? Width of lots is something to think about. I mean, in PDs, that's gonna vary because you're gonna have someone coming in, putting in little tiny, they try to squeeze them all in 24. But if you want to set minimum lot size, 60s or,
70 or 60 or what do you want?
Again, that's a zoning.
That's zoning.
That's zoning.
Well-
And we have a percentage of
It's on
the lots
streets, too,
that
though.
it has to be between the lots, between the buildings.
Setbacks.
The lot with
No, I want
different
to set that.
zoning ordinance.
This is between, the home can only include.
No, it's
So
a
far
separate-
from the
he's talking about
property
the right
line.
there.
Side
Yeah, no,
side-
setbacks.
side-
The other
side
way.
setbacks.
It's under
Yeah,
the
well,
laws.
Well, yeah, there's the guideline for lots, but,
Yeah, it's under the guide, that's what I'm talking about, it's a guideline for the lots and stuff like that.
well, but the lot, minimum lot width and lot size
Right,
is
that's
set up
under-
in the zoning.
Right, that's, okay, well, we can talk about that.
Yeah, okay,
we'll
yeah,
talk
because
about
that and street, yeah, because that and the street, all the requirements on streets and blocks in there need to either go, we talked about sending those to the city design manual, so that those, all that is in there.
Okay, and also, there's also some stuff in here, I guess we can talk about, for sidewalks, y'all have read those? Did we talk about it last time?
We discussed them.
Yeah, did they decide about
Yeah,
requiring, you do want sidewalks, not requiring sidewalks?
You want
do
sidewalks on your
sidewalks.
thoroughfares?
And
Everywhere, or?
Wait,
I want sidewalk and
Yeah.
everything.
and I think.
Sidewalks
A
everywhere.
business, I want a sidewalk.
Except Old Town.
No, I'm for
Huh?
the sidewalks, but I think the tree lawn should be eliminated and sidewalks should be next to the street.
Or you want the orphan way?
You get rid of the park.
Whatever,
You also
you
don't
call
want
it
way.
tree lawn, other people call it.
So you're talking about the
parkway.
sidewalk running up against the curb.
Correct, so that people, the homeowners don't have to edge 3 times instead of once. No, I mean, you
But we're
know,
talking along the parkway, right?
any street, so that the sidewalk is next to the street and not the piece of lawn that you then have to worry about a sprinkler system.
How does that work?
And then
Well,
have to go in
it's
and
just,
out.
typically, when you're right next to the paving surface, you, instead of a 4-foot sidewalk to residential, you require an extra foot, just for safety, since you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, because, I know, in part of Dallas, that's the sidewalk is
Is-
next to the street.
Or is right, yeah, like in the Northwood area, they,
Yeah.
yeah.
Made it, nice, as far as homeowners were concerned. it was-
But what you also do there, though, is you also, well, like I said, widen out that sidewalk so that,
Yeah, they had to make, they made the sidewalk wider, where the mailbox was, they had to make more cement to go around the mailbox.
it's
so you
right,
could get
yeah,
around
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So how does,
I've had both.
are the water meters past that?
Water meters, yeah, water meters are back in the yard, yeah.
Can I say, it does have in here right now, some cities have a waiver of it, I mean, you require the sidewalks, and then there's certain circumstances where they can come and ask you for a waiver of that, because it's just almost impossible because of the grade, or because of some physical condition that they can't build a sidewalk, or maybe it's already developed and they would be the only little piece of sidewalk, like there's no sidewalk to connect to, for example.
Would that just be
Well, like,
anything that, I mean, anything?
Anything in Old
Come
Town.
Well,
before
usually I
council
think
for
that,
that.
yeah. I
anything
mean,
in Old Town is gonna have that, is gonna have that clause that they're gonna, that if they subdivide those lots down Dallas Street, are you really gonna make them put a sidewalk next to the bar ditch
Right.
and when nobody else has a sidewalk there?
Yeah, they're gonna be the
So
only
we
one
can
on
write
the
that,
There's got-
it's on
there's
page
got to
42,
be-
you know, we can
there's got to
pull
be a
out,
sidewalk.
we can talk about pull out certain places where you don't want, generally we want sidewalks, except these certain places we don't want sidewalks. And then, we recognize where it's physically almost impossible to build a sidewalk, so you can come and ask council to waive that.
So just like the hardship.
Yeah, so I would recommend you put that in there, because those are gonna happen. You're gonna have somebody, and you don't wanna have to come back and change the ordinance for them. It's easier to just have that, we call it temporary waiver in there, so they can ask for that. Okay, so is that okay?
How many more questions do you have?
Are y'all okay with the dedication of land and for the park and waivers, and you read all that about the?
Yep, the 5% of
Is
the
that all?
lots and land or
All
a
okay?
comparable value.
Do y'all want them to build the facilities and put it together, or do y'all want them to have the option of putting funds in escrow until the bargaining city?
I
That's
think
what
it
you,
should be read that they are required to produce those facilities, but the city has the option to.
It's the city's option, not their option.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that sound good? Okay.
That's the way it's currently written in the current ordinance, so. I'd suggest you stay there.
Okay. I think that's,
You touched on plats. I'm not
okay.
sure any-
Yeah, okay, yeah, is everybody okay with all those different?
No, I'm
You're not,
not
okay.
sure how many
Okay.
different plats.
Is that going to replat and admin plat? And I gave you that description, right? In your packet? In your packet.
I
Okay.
read through it, I'm still not quite sure. I
Okay.
could.
Okay.
So I think we have 4 different kinds of plats that we're going to allow. Preliminary and final, which I think we all kind of know what those are. We have something called an admin plat. Maybe there's 5 different things. Admin is 4 lots or less, no change to utilities or right of way or street on your street.
Well, it's basically, it already has, no need for the creation of a new street or existing, or extension of municipal facilities.
Does that have that name right?
Admin, right?
Okay.
It's based on statute.
And then there is also some kind of plat where you're just fixing what we already want. Minor correction.
It's an amended plat, isn't it?
Right, well, we have a replat. Is that-
No, it's amended plat.
I'm saving that one for
Amended.
Oh, you did that last?
Amended plat.
Okay, amending plat,
That's just a simple change and again.
it's
no
usually a
public
little
hearing.
error, something.
City staff can approve that.
Yeah.
And city staff can approve the previous one.
The admin plat.
Right?
And no public hearing. They'll just report on it to the council.
Yeah.
And then the 5th one is the replat.
Okay?
And I think I know the next ones.
Okay.
As I read it, anytime there is a new residential lot created, it's called a replat.
Anytime there's a new lot, it doesn't have to be residential, just a new lot. Like the one up on 75 that you
Yep.
just approved tonight.
Yep.
There was 2, you got rid of the property line, now it's only 1.
Yep.
That's a replat. You changed the physical title of the property. And it's not just residential, it's any existing, a replat is it's anything that's been platted prior. And you are changing.
Like
the sh-
moving those
you-
lot lines.
You're changing the shape or configuration of any one of those lots. That's a replat.
Okay.
Just, I mean,
And that has to be a public hearing, as I read the state
yeah,
law.
On a replat.
yeah. Because all the people, all the lots adjacent. Like they did tonight.
Well, number 4 is-
Both P and Z and council.
Well, that was the other thing, have we decided if plats stop at P and Z, or are they all coming up to council?
How does council feel? Don't lose the decision with planning and zoning.
What y'all call that it comes to council?
On the consent agenda, on the
Yeah,
consent agenda.
That's the other option.
That way-
And then
Yeah,
if there's,
decided that.
if we do have some sort of, something that's
You-
inside
you-
the head, we can,
You can pull it off of the consent agenda and act on it as a separate item if you want.
Because the consent agenda is where y'all make a sweeping vote for everything that's on the consent agenda. The non-consent agenda, which is what we typically would do, is where you deliberate on everything. So, that all's determined. We can have, you can start out with things on the consent agenda, and if for some reason there's an issue, that can be plucked off of the consent agenda. We're moving item B, or item 5, from the consent, and you just announce it. We'll move it from the consent agenda to the non-consent. We need to have a little more discussion about this, so that can happen.
And we can do that right during the meeting.
Yes, you can do that, you announce it during the meeting, so that way, before the consent agenda is approved, just want to make an announcement. Number 5 that's on the consent agenda will not be part of that, it has been moved to the non-consent agenda. And that's how it goes, right, Virginia?
Well, then are you gonna pull it if someone brings a card and wants to talk about it?
Public hearing.
Yeah, so if someone does a card, I don't know.
Well, in the public hearings, they're not necessarily going to do a card, right?
Well, I know, so,
So if But you have the public hearings before you ever get to the consent or non-consent agenda.
Right, oh yeah, you need to vote, right?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay, yeah, you're gonna, okay, I didn't understand.
Okay.
Yeah, you're still gonna hold the public hearing. You're just gonna vote.
You still have a public hearing?
Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about
I'm
instead of the
sorry.
sweeping.
Okay, I
vote.
was like, I'm sorry, I'm
All
sorry.
right, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Because you understand, it's mainly ministerial, like he was trying to tell y'all tonight. If they meet everything, it's just,
How does the people on the planning and zoning feel about you guys are going through all the stuff and approving something, and then us reviewing it, maybe changing our minds and not wanting to approve it? Does that bother you? Does it feel like you're not worth anything if we do that to you? I've known some planning and zoning, well, the reason I'm asking is because I've known some people who were on the planning and zoning board, and they did that to them 2 or 3 times, and the whole planning and zoning board quit, because wasn't any reason for them to be there if they were gonna, not gonna accept what they recommended. Of course, they weren't getting paid out of the
I
same
think you're
pocket, so.
responsible to the voters, so you have that responsibility.
Okay,
You review that before we vote.
okay.
But if you do it too often,
Okay.
then-
Herb's gonna build an alley for you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the key right there. I mean, it's, I don't think it has anything to do with undermining what they've already worked hard to do.
Right, right.
It allows, I think it allows the citizens and the council an opportunity, if something got past planning and zoning, then all of a sudden we have an opportunity to stop something or something. Because since I've been here, everything that has come through y'all,
Well, we've had occasion where we had a planning and zoning that, let's say, 4 or 5 people showed up. Okay, when we passed it, and then these 4 or 5 people went out and got another 100, and say, okay, let's storm the thing, if we didn't like what they did, okay, then the council overrode us.
Yeah.
Took it right.
Yeah, we had 30 people
Yeah.
saying do one thing and 2 people saying do the other.
Okay,
And
so
so
what's-
there was something.
I think that's
So what they're
Okay.
saying is it doesn't stop at P and Z, it still comes to.
that's how you want it. I'm just saying though, just remember that it's very ministerial, and even if the 100 people show up, you've got to say, the mayor's gonna have to explain that it's almost ministerial, and by state law, if it meets all of our city ordinances and everything, we pretty much have to
Again,
pass
this
it.
is a replat and not a DD, so, it's a plat, not a DD, so it should.
On the fee chart, there was one other kind of plat, which isn't addressed, it's called a conveyance plat.
Yep.
Somebody just transferring, they're not doing new lot lines, they're just transferring property instead of a warranty deed. It's a way of getting, I don't know,
Okay, so
Gina,
what's-
we might need to talk about.
What's the appropriate fee on a conveyance plan?
That's 250 plus, $250 plus $10 an acre, or whatever it was.
Okay, and who's that competitive with?
I think we use the ANA
Because I don't
stuff.
remember seeing the conveyance.
What's the conveyance?
Oh, it is.
I don't have it on my word.
Okay, there was conveyance
Yeah.
plan, I thought we addressed that.
We
thought we did
talked
the-
about it, but it's not in the.
It's not in the order, I've
Conveyance.
never done them, so I don't
The
know.
conveyance plat is just, if somebody's selling property, it's just the actual bulk sale. It's getting that property platted
Is-
instead of a warranty deed or something like that. I don't know if
Excuse me,
it's,
isn't it often used with inheritance?
yeah.
That's what I thought.
Okay, well, Plano does $190 and Frisco does $250. Well, only two on the.
We need to
fee
find
chart
out
for
what the
conveyance.
legalities of a conveyance plat, because you're not making,
Okay.
you're not doing new property lines, you're just
You're
doing
not-
the existing property and you're just
So-
transferring ownership.
seems like
Not splitting it.
it's not much administration. Seems like it'd be easy.
It seems like an administrative.
But for review, you gotta make sure that the meets and bounds close, you gotta have
Yes.
the right surveyor certificate, you gotta have the right owner certificate, there's a bunch of things in the ordinance that have to be there.
And once it's all good.
It has to be able to go get filed, and when it's done, it's gotta get filed with the counties too. So there is quite a bit, it's got the same ministerial stuff as regular plat does.
Regina, do you have enough information to keep that?
Yeah, I'll have to try to add, I'm not familiar with them, but I'll look it up and try to.
That's
add it.
law, right?
Yeah, and then I guess basically under state law, you're not supposed to, you're not supposed to transfer things now by meets and bounds, it's supposed to be flat, I guess. About, yeah.
And that's what
I'll
that's
refer to
for.
that. And I want to tell you,
It's primarily inherited.
yeah, I was gonna say, just for the transfer. I just want to tell y'all for the penalty provision, we talked about it a little bit last time. The way I had written it, cities, I looked it up the last week, cities do it kind of differently. Some cities do what I had was not more than $2,000. And what that covers, the 2,000 under state law, you're allowed to charge that for safety issues, okay? Other cities, I looked at Austin's and they have, it's like 500 unless it's for fire, health, safety, and they kind of list them out, and those are up to 2,000. So I was just going to ask you, I can change that paragraph to list out that it's normally 500 unless it's for these things, and then quote that state law right there. And it might help your administration and your judge and all that to kind of remember, I guess, that it's normally 500 Class C unless it's these things, and then you can go 200. So if you want, I can.
2,000.
I mean 2,000. I'm sorry. I could modify that a little just to kind of down the road. It'll help you remember that there's only certain circumstances when you can do 2,000 because you're not going to see those tickets very often. Probably. So if that's okay, I might go ahead and change that. Is it okay?
Okay, are these are still going to be criminal?
They're Class C's. They're still Class C's. Yeah.
Okay, well then, you have to allege a level of culpability, don't you? And I mean, it's not strict liability. You have to say the same. If you're going to allege a crime against someone, then it's got to be for something that they've done intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly. And I didn't see anything like that in there. It looked like it was like we were going to levy civil penalties because there wasn't enough in there to allege crimes. I mean, there's no culpability. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard language for I mean, I can check with some others, but I think it's pretty standard. I can check on that one.
Okay, if you would.
It doesn't read like crime, and a misdemeanor is a crime.
Okay. I'll check on that.
PZ, you have anything?
The question came up last time about how much of the subdivision ordinance applies to the ETJ, and I should have an email later. Summarize it, basically it's everything. It may not be as enforceable as it is in the city.
Right, the penalties on it, yeah. Penalties
But
on it.
everything in that zoning ordinance will apply to
So did y'all see the memo?
Is that the
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yes. Is that good? Good, okay, good.
Unless council has anything else to add?
If they don't, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Robert, is there a second?
Mayor?
Second's going. Okay. All those in favor on the council, please raise their hand. It is unanimous. We're adjourned. How about the P and Z?
So a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mayor, for your last meeting.
9:51, Jennifer.